out for a little bit.
Yep.
Well, we got started.
Yeah. I think as you've heard us say, we're not up here to do like a sales pitch or anything. We're going to actually run through 5 scenarios that everybody runs into, typically most days in a security environment. So, as you know, I'm Kevin Clement with Lenel Systems. I'm the regional sales manager. I've been here for 17 years. And introduce yourself.
Derek Felice, Milestone Systems. Been with Milestone for 6+ years, and as I was saying earlier, this is something that we're all pretty jazzed and excited about doing because it's no longer about pitching our individual products. It's about talking about a cohesive solution and not spending time talking about the cool bells and whistles that we like, per se. It's really about an ecosystem. So Milestone's always been really engendered with having a comprehensive ecosystem, and so this is just we're just really excited. So all of us have been really pumped for about a month, and we probably put this together way too fast, but we're really excited to be able to do it. So
yeah, it's about operational efficiencies and how to embrace technology that you potentially already have or may be looking at to make your lives and jobs easier. So.
And I'm Kelly Lake. I'm with Zentel, representing the Victor Stentofon product line, and we cover the audio communications side of things. This is an area, as part of this story, that's changed a lot rapidly in the last few years. Traditionally, communications and security was intercom, or it might have been public address, or it might have been radio, but it was a lot of separate systems at any rate. Right? And what we've seen from the audio perspective is the convergence to our movement to a unified, intelligent communication solution that is part of the rest of your security approach. And being able to use audio communications in creative ways to solve common problems that go beyond just taking a call, although that's certainly part of it, or even just broadcasting a message, but how to use those for those common everyday problems that so many people have, and combine audio with the video and the access control piece. So welcome, glad to have you.
Yeah. So the first scenario we'll take you through is just a typical day at Wayne Enterprises. And
so I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt. Okay. So we're still figuring out. So what we've done also is we set up different scenarios. Yeah. So
tell a story.
Real life scenarios where something happens. How do you address it with both access control, video, and audio at the same time, right? Okay. And then we'll stop in the middle of those scenarios after they're done. Actually, not in the middle, and then we'll talk about that. And that's the time to discuss anything that's pertinent to you.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning. We'll mention some of the features of our particular products, of course, as part of the story, but really the emphasis is not on what does OnGuard do, what does Stentofon do, what does Milestone do, because you pretty much already know that, right? Access control is primarily, early days was keyless entries. Stentofon was intercoms at a door, and Milestone is video surveillance, right? What we're really talking about today, all of the ways that we're solving these hypothetical problems, all depend on the interactivity of these systems together and how you can use that to be more efficient and respond faster.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. So our first little scenario is a day in the life at Wayne Enterprises, and so the first thing we'll walk you through is we're going to introduce you to CJ. He's our director of security, and he's come to work. And after he walks into the building, either through a badge or maybe a mobile credential, he's going to scan on the building. And first thing CJ is going to want to do is assess what the day is going to be like, get an idea. So he's going to go to the Security Operations Center. Oh, looks like we got a couple people. Come on in, guys.
Welcome.
These are your guys?
Yeah, these are my guys.
Yeah. Oh, that's your guys.
I saw the shirt after.
Yeah. So you guys can grab food if you want, and just come on in. We're just starting the presentation.
Okay. Yep, so CJ's going to go into the Security Operations Center, and the first thing he's going to do is take a look at his video system.
So what we're looking at here is just in everyday operations. You're going to have an integration. This is the first integration we're showing between access control and video, right? So in the live tab, I'll just scoot over on this side. So in the live tab, you can associate whatever camera you want to whatever door you want, right? And as those are coming through and people badge in, so as CJ badged in, the on-site, security officer or surveillance observer can actually see who's coming in and what door, right? And I can actually click on any one of these and quickly scroll through them, kind of the same way I do with video. and jump back in time real quickly to see who was that badge holder that came through that door right at that time. So it's just live interaction of what's happening. And I can see whether they're user denied, user granted, door forced open. I can see the card badge holder information right there. Cool.
So the next thing CJ is going to do is open up his Lenel console or switch over to that screen. And the Lenel console is new with Lenel 7.3. And so this is an introduction for you to our new web-based APIs and how we're moving more towards a software as a service to give you mobile and web-based clients and accessibility to the application from literally anywhere that you can jump on a PC and hit the database or hit the network. Everything isn't a thin client today, but what you'll see here is the hyperlinks at the top. We can put in custom hyperlinks as well, so you could launch your Milestone from this application, you could launch the Stentofon desktop app, whatever the case may be. So this is your quick little launchpad jumping off point for the Lenel system. So CJ is going to figure out or determine through the day that the next thing coming up is he has a CSO coming in. Or actually, are we doing the I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's good.
No, that's actually where we're going.
Yeah, CSO is coming in.
Absolutely. CEO is coming in. So as you look at the Security Operations Center as a concept, it's obviously a good one that really is designed to enable efficiencies, right? Allow you to have the most security, comprehensive awareness of what's going on in your facility, and then be able to respond quickly, right? But what's interesting is as you look at audio, video, and access control as a complete solution, the video and the access control, what's on the screens, is primarily information inbound. It's alarms, it's activities, it's access granted, it's video information to allow you to see what's happening out there. And it's not until you add and integrate fully the audio communications piece of that puzzle that you actually can interact outbound to the facility itself. So the Security Operations Center is a little bit incomplete if all you can do is sit in there and watch what's going on and be aware of going on. If you don't have the ability to then react quickly and communicate out to that space, then you've actually lost some functionality by removing guards and remote folks out in that area, right? And consolidate.
We were talking to a security operator yesterday, and he said he gets frustrated every day because he watches the smokers go out on camera and prop the door, and he just wants to yell at the screen and tell them to close the door, but he doesn't have the intercom to talk to him.
Right, you can't talk to that guy, right? And that's a common problem, and it was one that was kind of, this is the piece that's often overlooked, or the last piece of the puzzle to finally fall into place. So if you're going to use, if you're going to rely on an audio solution to communicate outbound to your facility, the most important thing about that is that you can clearly hear the people out there and that you can be heard when you talk to them, right? And the intercom industry, the public address industry, historically, frankly, hasn't been that great at that. The quality of the audio of most devices just isn't that great until now. So that's where we've put all of our emphasis at Stentofon is into audio quality, because without that, you can't do any of the stuff that we're going to talk about today. So what we have is we have a CEO of Wayne Enterprises, Mr. Wayne himself, it turns out, is inbound on helicopters. So we have a couple of different activities that need to happen. One is that we need to secure the helipad, make sure nobody gets hurt and is clear of the area, and then we want to be able to greet Mr. Wayne as he's coming up. So it's important to recognize that this is going to be obviously a very noisy environment, right? So we got the helicopter running in the background. So as we both work to do the paging and being able to do that through multiple devices like horns and intercoms that produce 100 decibels each at the same time, and then be able to have clear two-way communication by leveraging IP technology and software to intelligently process the audio, filter out that background noise so that we can hear him and he can hear us. So we're going to greet Mr. Wayne and tell him, welcome.
Welcome, Mr. Wayne.
Thank you for joining us. We've
prepared your office for you.
And just get a nice, clear, and easy to hear communication. Now he's connected to your GSOC. He knows that, or to Security Operations Center, excuse me, and he knows that they're waiting for him.
All right, so periodically after we get done with the scenario, we're going to see these two guys chatting. And that's really just, we're going to keep coming back to this picture over and over again to just, if you guys have any questions, that you have any discussion points you want to do, any collaboration you want to discuss, this is the time to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in this one, because part of our thought here is to serve as advisors for you guys today. A lot of these are systems that you're already using, you're already specifying, but thinking about new and creative ways to use them that go beyond the obvious. So part of it is a collaboration with you and for your input. So any thoughts or experiences with unintelligible audio, difficult understanding, or even how to work with CEOs or VIPs and their kind of unique security needs? What do you guys usually advise, or what's your experience?
When you talk about unintelligible audio,
Yeah.
I always think of the drive up.
Yeah. It's the most classic example there is,
That's gotta
right?
be it, right?
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And that's the everyday experience of so many people.
So last week, I told this yesterday, but last week I was in Tacoma, and I had one of our solution engineers come visit a site that's gated. And I got there early, but he was actually out of the gate for almost 8 or 9, 10 minutes. I was done. And he's sitting in the, and I'm like, where's this guy? Well, he's literally sitting there with a diesel truck running, and they couldn't hear him, he couldn't hear them. Either way. And so I had to go out, and to talk to the front desk person and say, that's my guy. Can you let him in? And so he came in, he's like, I couldn't hear a thing, shut the car up.
Do you guys currently use intercom or have a solution for that?
How about in like blue light emergency call stations?
Oh, yeah, they do have the code blue phones.
Okay.
They do have that.
Code blue? Okay, sure. How about you, Dustin? Do you guys have much requirement or, do customers, does intercom come up much? The audio piece of it?
Yeah, communications.
Yeah. Funny you mentioned that. It's one of our scenarios.
Yeah, and those are all very traditional places to find intercom, right? And what we're finding and encouraging is the use of audio communications in places that you wouldn't normally think about it, perhaps, to solve other types of problems than just a guy trying to get into a door or even an emergency call, although that's a really important use of technology for sure.
Yep.
So hopefully you'll get some ideas as we continue through.
Oh, awesome. So, right to your point. Thank you, Dustin.
This door?
Yeah. So we chose a loading bay door here, but we like to frame this up as everybody has this problem door in their facility, right? Or multiple problem doors, whether that's a loading dock where they prop it for the delivery guy, or it's the side door where the smokers go out and they prop it, or it's just a door where a visitor comes up and knocks and doesn't hit the intercom or anything, or the delivery guy. And then somebody gives the knock, and the first human response is, oh, I'm going to go open that door. And now we have a breach of security. We're not following policy protocol. Or the person yanked on the door and gave us a false door, phone ban, or something like that. So it's essentially a nuisance alarm. It's not really a threat to the organization, but it's something that security has to deal with, right? It came into the system. So how do you mitigate that? So
yeah, and these doors are typically unmanned, right? There's usually nobody there it's not your lobby or anything. And so the challenge is multiple challenges, right? One is how do you, if it's someone to drop somebody off, it's that nice friendly delivery man there. And then how do you verify his identity and open the door? Make sure you have all the information that verifies that. And the second is if you're getting alarms, how do you verify those alarms to see whether they're just a nuisance alarm or if they're really a nefarious problem event, right? And then how do you respond to that? So most customers, their first instinct is to address the store with a video intercom, and that's a fantastic solution for this. And what's neat is that when you have your intercom and communication systems integrated into your access control and your video, then you start to have better awareness. Most video intercom solutions are kind of a one-to-one separated system where the only place that you get that information is right here, right? You get the nice little video image, you can call in and you can talk to the guy and release the door. And that's fine if it's a guy that is a known guy and it's the delivery guy and he's there every day, right? But sometimes you need more information. If you have a busy security operations center and you have a lot going on, then perhaps the little bit of caller ID that comes up on the screen isn't enough to quickly and automatically understand where that call is coming from. You might have multiple facilities, multiple doors, right, that you're controlling. So by integrating the systems and allowing that information to come up on your graphical maps, when the call comes in, it's easily highlighted, very intuitive to know where it's coming from. Right? But then as you take that call, view the video, talk to the guy, and you decide that, wait, we don't really know this guy. We don't know very much about him. We'd like a little more information. The important thing to remember is that video intercoms are just this, right? It's just that view. Customers get a little bit of a false sense of security sometimes, thinking that's enough. But in truth, on your graphical maps, that simple icon of a camera right next to it gives you the flexibility to very quickly and easily pull up a matrix that shows you not only that view from the video intercom as it gets pulled into the Milestone system as another camera feed, but then marry that up to the camera up in the corner and the camera over here so that you can see truly what's happening, not only the guy's face, but what he's carrying, who's with him, and what's around the corner.
Yeah.
So we make that very easy with this integrated solution.
So what if it's what if it is a door forced open or a door held open? You know, so the smoker scenario or something like that.
Got it.
So
Held open, you got it today.
I did get it
Door held
today.
open.
I have this middle block with saying door held open. I want to say something else. So what we can also do is this is actually a pop-up flyout, you know, coming out of the Milestone system, and it integrates with both the Lenel system, and I can pass through alerts and alarms, you know, coming from Stentofon. And what this has happened, so if you have a door held open or a door forced, all of a sudden, boom, this pops up in front of you. You have the video right there. I can quickly scroll through the video to see the event. I can see any badge holder information that happened on that event right there. And I can actually put buttons on here that I can have do stuff. So I could initiate a two-way audio right off of a button click, or I could lock the door, or I could initiate a lockdown, or whatever I want, you know, through the system. And you could actually be completely reduced. This is completely reduced in the tray. Milestone's reduced, everything's done, and he's doing some work, you know, setting up reports or whatever, and all of a sudden, boom, pops up in front of him.
Right, so now that same door forced open alarm that used to just come up in alarm monitoring, so you're lucky if you even see it at all, right? Captures your attention with an immediate video image so that you can evaluate whether this is the smoker standing out there, you know, with the door propped open, or it's a guy with a crowbar and trying to get in. And so you can decide what kind of response. And in the time that the operator is evaluating that video and deciding what the appropriate response is, you can have immediate feedback in that location, because that alarm can also generate a pre-recorded message out of the intercom there, which is loud enough to actually capture someone's attention, that says unauthorized opening of the door, or please close this door, it's not authorized to be open at this time, it's been open too long, or you can create sirens or whatever you want.
Yeah.
Something that creates some discomfort in that area that discourages people from propping that door open.
Well, especially when you talk about your busy security operations center, like, you know, most alarms don't have the courtesy to wait for one to clear out before it comes in. So, you know, the operator might have things stacked up. So the ability to automate that message based on that door propped or whatever the case may be, to call attention to the situation or embarrass the person or whatever the case may be.
That's how you change
to get them to
behavior,
close
right?
that door. Exactly.
Right, and that alarm might go away all by itself before the operator even has a chance to get to it. And he may be dealing with something else that's more critical in nature at that time, especially if it's a habitual thing, right? So you can start to use voice and sound in that immediate area to mitigate that problem and become aware of it.
Questions?
Thoughts?
Do you have that door somewhere?
One or two of them?
What kind of door is it?
I'm just thinking about our NEC, the Nikolai Center. They've got a lobby where in the past it's been an open lobby, but they don't really have a security guard there. And they've had trouble with homeless and transients
Yeah.
and that coming in and
Absolutely.
you know, snooping around, seeing what they can find, and
Yeah.
you know, and so recently they put the lock on the door, so you have to badge in to get through the door.
Mm-hmm.
But that's created a couple of other problems.
That's
in that-
problematic, isn't it?
yeah, because now you've got people who really should be able to get through that door, who don't have the badge access, And now how do you let them to get in there?
Right.
You sit
So,
down.
securely.
That's why you used to do on the
Yeah.
internal door at Nikolai.
Well, that's
Boom,
what
boom,
any one
boom,
of us
boom,
would
someone
do,
show up.
right? Is
Yeah,
like
yeah.
stand there
They let me in.
Yeah,
and knock.
yeah.
Right?
So,
That's a great point because that door is full of all kinds of problems, right? You've got folks that need to come in that aren't badged, that aren't part of your workforce. You've got people that go out and prop the door open, which makes it insecure. But you also have folks often, if it's like an employee entrance, who typically go in and out of that door, or maybe they even have a credential, but they left it at home that day, took something from their wife's car,
Yeah.
right? Left it in
happens.
their pants pocket
Yeah.
or whatever, and they don't have that credential. And a lot of times what will happen is that person, because they don't want to go all the way over to the other building where security is to get that fixed, will knock on the door. And we tend to kind of forget about that because what that does is human nature on the inside is to go open that door,
Yeah.
right? Pretty much if someone knocked on this door right here, one of us would probably walk out there and be like, "Can I help you?" Right? And that, of course, immediately breaches what was supposed to be a secure door. And then if they let in, Bob, because he comes in every day, now you have someone in your building that's not credentialed.
Why did you pay
don't
several
have
thousands
any-
of dollars to secure that door?
if you're
when
just
you
going to
have
let
people-
someone in.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So from your point of view, and you mentioned this usually earlier, was the responsibility of the security staff to really be aware of who's in the building. But nobody appreciates that. I mean, employees don't appreciate how important that is, right?
Yeah,
So
but-
they just let people in. It's
Yeah.
the path of least resistance. But if you have a terminal there that allows them to communicate easily, they'll be less likely to do that. They'll be likely
Hey
to
Kelly,
use
one thing we didn't show yesterday, and I don't
Yeah.
know if you have the ability to today, but not only do the Stentofon devices allow for intelligible audio for just standard communications, but can you set one of those off at a max
Right
dB
now,
level?
Yeah, so that's
So they're
a great
incredibly
one.
loud.
lost my badge.
It'll be all right, I think,
You
in
don't
here.
have
But
badge. All I'm trying to do, we need to
oh,
call
wait,
someone.
his name is Sam.
Will they
But that's a
open
good
the
point.
door from
The ability to
outside?
automatically
They don't have
trigger,
feature
and
right
that's
now,
the
right?
key, is to take an access control event and automatically trigger a pre-recorded message that creates an alarm or some discomfort in the area.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Also,
So, for example,
right next to the door, we can add a audio,
Attention,
and that will
This
directly
is
connect
a
to
we
the
we have it dialed.
security
Please
guy, like,
proceed to the nearest
security guard,
emergency
who
exit.
operating in this
Yeah.
room.
So,
Yeah.
but just to have those pre-recorded messages,
Like that, and we have
available
saw
to you
something
in
here.
that quick.
So basically, we need to
Yeah,
communicate
actually, we
with
had
them.
one of our
And,
integrators that deals a lot
and
with
see
banks
their
and
face,
credit unions and
while
everything,
doing some
and
other
they said one of the
authentication,
biggest challenges
will
they were running
understand
into
I'm
was
the right person, and they have to trigger something from there and open.
who's
But
homeless people in the vestibule.
again,
Yes.
after
Yes.
this integration,
Yeah, I had the luxury of setting one of those off in my previous
holding
roles, right in
screen,
front of me, you
the
could feel
data
it
can be
reverberating inside.
shown on the screen and.
So at the top level, I mean, how many dB does that
right
mean?
there.
Does a Stentofon?
105, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they had an issue with homeless people in the
So this is
vestibule. So what they did was they put in a
Sounds
Stentofon
like,
turbine and a motion detector.
I'm
And
thinking
when they got motion, when motion went over 5 minutes, it was starting to go.
Right.
And as it gradually time went up, if it was still
Yeah,
in
security
second motion, it got
officer.
louder and
Security
louder.
operations.
So finally, the homeless person would just leave because they couldn't,
But
They couldn't stand it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have done projects like that.
Complicated.
Yeah.
Are we turning up the, is that what we're doing, turning up the volume?
Yeah, we're trying to. I wasn't ready for that.
connect to Mr.
That's all right, no, worries. we don't have to, we can do it later when we're
Yeah, do it
done.
when you're doing your demo.
Yeah, let's do it when we're doing
phone
it.
as audio,
Mhm.
even though you were
All right,
at some place which
this is all you,
noise,
Kevin.
Mhm.
Yes.
This phone is
Okay, so,
taking only
what was his name,
the
Michael?
one
Michael.
which needs
Michael.
to be
This is
transferred and eliminate all
Yeah.
the noise.
So Michael just got slimed. No, Michael's coming for a
Yeah,
job
sounds
interview.
good.
For some reason,
Glitch.
he was messing around with Prezi, and that won't go away. So we don't know why.
It's a Halloween version.
It's our Halloween, totally, the Halloween sign version.
But the next situation would be, we all get visitors at our given organization. So Michael is actually coming for a job interview. So Michael's going to come in, and he's going to go to reception, and through Lenel's integrated visitor management system, reception can either sign them in through our front desk application or through a visitor management self-service iPad application or kiosk. So they can just step through, and you can set up that process of how the workflow of how they're allowed to sign in. So essentially, they go through the workflow, we get them checked in, and then automatically through the system, Michael's host is going to get an email notifying him that he's on premise. So Michael's host is Matthew Wiegand, And Matthew's a busybody, he's not always at his desk, so how do we notify this person if they're not in front of their email that they have a guest waiting down in the lobby? So here's where we leverage the intercom.
Yeah, so, this is just, again, all about communications through different modes of communication, right? And so you can just as easily give a simple all call
That was a wake up.
or and make that a very simple Michael is here for his appointment, right? And get Matt's attention wherever he might be. But again, the ability from the lobby desk to be able to hit via email, to hit via page, maybe just in that office suite or on that floor, and be able to
And have to go out to
capture
select
that.
intercom stations, right, to broadcast
right.
the message.
You might have it, as we talk about a cohesive system, it might be part of your paging system, overhead speakers, phones on your desk, so that you can hit that wherever he is. Like, we've all shown up for appointments and had to wait for 10 minutes into your appointment time because they can't find him, right? Can't get a hold of him. And you're hitting him on his cell phone and stuff. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And just another way
Multiple
to
modes,
leverage
yeah.
the system that doesn't necessarily have to be a security type of response, but we're leveraging an investment that's already there, right? So, do you ever have people get that specific? I meant to ask you before about like a problem door and how would you design the security to mitigate those issues?
Maybe a little bit.
Okay.
Most of the time I'm working on building systems.
Okay.
Right.
So the issue hasn't even presented itself.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot
Yeah.
of times
Well, that's
the user
even
has other buildings.
that's even more of a challenge, right? Because you're now tasked with anticipating
Yeah.
what they don't even know they don't know they need because you don't even know who's moving yet, right?
Well, that's-
So
and
part
that's
of
why I like that you guys have this setup.
Yeah.
Doing these scenario things because it's making me think of.
Good.
asking the right
good, that was
Awesome.
the intention.
Good.
And being able to use systems together that can connect, maybe they want them to connect, maybe they don't, but they can in the future, maybe things change. It's about that flexibility.
On the visitor management, do you guys have how do you guys do visitor management? Do you work with visitor management? I know a lot of people have like paper, and it's just strictly from a competitor outlay. I'm always scanning the paper to see who came in.
Of course.
Just kind of so it's not really the most private way to do visitor management and or tracking. And what happens with Kevin was telling me the FBI comes in.
Yeah, I was presenting to a company and I just said, and I signed it on paper here. What happens if the FBI shows up someday and says, we have somebody on the most wanted list, we have reason to believe they may have been in your organization, could we see your visitor log? And you hand them a stack of paper and say, yeah, here you go, And the woman looked at me and she goes, that's not funny, that happened last week. Seriously?
Some of the exchanges.
So I was like,
yeah,
well, then if
so-
you have Lenel, you can run this beautiful report and here we go.
Can you just search my visitor?
Yeah.
What was his name?
Right.
What day do you think he might have been here? I can run your
Yeah.
report for the day, I can show you
Yep.
who was here.
So I said, well, good, then my timing is great because it
Yeah.
looks like we have a solution for you.
The thing is that I find with those paper sign-in sheets,
Mm-hmm.
it's hit and miss.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and my
Whether
handwriting's
people even
atrocious.
sign it, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to find me on there anyway because my handwriting's so awful. I type everything these days. I don't cursive anymore. So.
In a busy building,
I love that.
how many times do you see somebody that's just tailgating?
Okay.
And they just go right on through.
Absolutely.
And security doesn't know it because there's so many people coming and going.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
Well, and I gotta
So-
think in a healthcare environment, privacy, of course, is a massive issue, and so then
Certainly.
you have, you can't just be letting people know who's been there and who's come and gone.
Yeah, if that's something you ever want to get more in depth on and how we can do visitors in Lenel, we're more than happy to set that up. So, cool. So now Michael, he's all pumped up, got out of his interview, went great, he thinks he's going to get the offer. Then he goes out to the parking garage, and we all know parking garages aren't very well lit environments. Typically, they're noisy, you have a lot of ambient noise and echoing and things like that. So Michael's going to go out to his car, and he could either potentially see a crime going on, or he could himself be in immediate danger or threat. So in a parking garage, it's not staffed with guards or things. So what does Michael do? So Michael will see the nearest blue phone,
And this is a classic.
You know what I'd do?
solution,
Yeah.
right?
911.
right? Well, see, but when we were talking about this yesterday,
We
when
were.
you're in a parking garage in downtown Seattle and you're 7 layers below
Yeah.
the Earth's surface,
You're not having-
911's not getting you anywhere.
That's true.
Yeah, that brings up an interesting point because this is as classic and old-timey security solution as there is, probably inside of the technology that we're still using today, right? The blue light.
Old-timey.
Old-timey,
Old-timey.
right? Like, it's blue light,
It's like
steel
phone booth.
casing, you know, painted silver or yellow or blue or red, something very high profile. And as you look at this particular industry, it's an interesting one because it was primarily started as a PR booth by universities that were trying to attract new students, right? So parents and students come on the campus tour, campus guide is walking backwards and goes, look how safe your students are. We have these phones everywhere for them to use. Send your students here, right? Which means they get more money. So that was actually the primary thing that these were used for, was recruiting. And at the time there were no cell phones, it was just a telephone because you don't have one in your pocket.
It's truthfully the only remnant of an old, like you said, like a telephone booth.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
it still
it
exists. You don't
really
see phone
is.
booths anymore, but it's really.
No, you're
analog-
absolutely right.
analog phone.
And a lot of the systems that are still out there are 10, 15 years old. They're still working on analog telephone lines. You got to pay for every month. They don't match. You know, they're not compatible with your new IP phone systems and stuff. And so this is a really interesting area. However, and so when I started about 5 years ago, there was a massive debate in flux at the time of whether these are still even relevant, right? Because the truth is that pretty much everybody's got one on the table or one in their pocket, got a cell phone. And now there are all kinds of different panic button apps where you can just dial 911 and get a hold of somebody right away. And truthfully, everyone in this room, if they were in this situation and had access to a cell phone and cell phone coverage, that's exactly how they would respond, right? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But the debate in the security industry on this is an interesting one because it has swung all the way back to the fact that these are actually still necessary devices. And the reason is because they provide a known location where you can get help that's not a responsibility of the person who needs help, but rather provided for them. Right? So this is still a relevant technology, but it's really changed because those old analog phone dialers, especially, but any kind of telephone-based technology that isn't supervised, no longer really protects you against the liability you assume by providing these units, right? High profile, high emergency expectation of response. So when you push a button, two worst things that can happen is push a button and nothing happens. Or, right, which is unfortunately kind of common because a lot of them work on a telephone technology that doesn't have any health monitoring associated with it. Or two, you push the button and either they don't answer or they're slow to respond, or they take your call and help is on the way, but it takes too long for them to get there. Right, so we got to be able to mitigate and get as much information as possible. So on the Stentofon side, we've done a lot of this because it's a processor-based technology that is fully supervised. And that supervision, when integrated, is represented on the graphical maps and in the system tree of the Lenel system, so that if one of those units goes offline, you immediately know. That's how, as a customer, you cover yourself against liability, right? For the guy who actually pushes the button and needs help, again, we go back to you need to be able to hear and be heard and be understood. So he needs to be able to get instructions clearly. You need to be able to hear him, no matter how echoey or noisy. If there's a wide scale event, there might be a lot of people, and be able to hear him. And then, maybe most importantly, this gentleman here who takes that call needs to immediately be able to see what's happening in the area. And if he gets that call and he's talking to someone, and then he has to go to his video system and pull up the camera, and the camera's facing the wrong way, he's not getting that instant verification. Right? So that intercom call, which creates an alarm in Lenel, which pulls up the automated view of that location in the Milestone system, and then provides immediate crystal clear feedback for him, is how that needs to happen to best protect you and, of course, the citizens. So, interesting things. That's an interesting field right now, for sure. Parking garages are challenging in a lot of ways. Lighting, paint, where do you put video cameras?
Ambient
What
noise.
can you see?
And what were you saying yesterday? It's all about having this guy.
Oh, right.
Um,
Yeah, so the last piece, right, there's one more slide, of course, is that you get that call, you find out what's wrong, you can see what's happening, and then the last piece of the puzzle is, of course, response, right? And unfortunately, a lot of times we kind of forget that part, just like I did, right? We go, okay, well, now we know what's happening. Well, then what, right? And I had a customer who told me, in his words, he goes, what I need to know is, do I need guards or guns? Fair enough, right? Everyone, I mean, you have a security force, they're probably not armed. If it's someone who's lost his car or had his, tires slashed or car broken into, they can respond and provide that service. If it's truly a violent event and you don't want to send him into that scenario, you need to know that you need to call first responders, right?
Or was it some kids playing and just hit the button, right? And
Yeah,
you
is
don't
it
need to
just a
send anybody.
nuisance and you can just talk to them and tell them so. But the ability to take that communications, that video feedback, the supervision provided by the access control, connected into your radio system so that you can actually take the call directly from the intercom and connect it to your officer who's responding. So it's not like, well, sit tight, in 10 minutes someone will be there, and then you got that blackout period while you wait. Maybe he can talk directly through that gentleman's radio the whole time he's on his way, get consistent and constant feedback.
Or the integration to a SIP phone as well, right?
Yeah.
So yesterday,
To a SIP
Yeah.
phone.
So yesterday when we were talking about this, one of the ladies from Seattle Cancer Institute said, I will always put these in. She's like, that saved a lady's life. And if you think about it, like I too think that I would take my phone out, but if I was being attacked, I'm probably not going to take my phone out at that time, put in my code, go to the phone, dial, I'm actually just going to run to the closest thing and slam the button.
That's exactly right.
And then if I slam the button and I get an immediate feedback that says help is on the way, then the attacker's not going to hang around at that point. And that's where it becomes key.
Right.
Yeah.
Or the other scenario is maybe I'm just monitoring the garage from the operations center and I see somebody trying to break into a car. Well, it's going to take 15 minutes for the guard to get out there, so this guy's already going to smash the window and be gone. But if I can call up the audio and be like, excuse me, hey, get away from that car or something.
Right.
Or the police are on their way. That's probably going to go a lot quicker
Roll
than.
call page every single Stentofon turbine in that entire.
Absolutely,
parking
right?
structure.
Because now you start to have
That guy will leave, guaranteed.
what amount to
Right.
10-watt paging horns
Yep.
in every single one of those blue light locations. And now you can talk to the entire garage in the event of an emergency or if you're trying to get in touch with somebody. Last little story, I was talking to somebody recently and they were like, yeah, we don't really like those things because what we get a lot are people that lost their car. It was in the airport.
Oh,
yeah.
Right, so they're in this huge airport parking lot, and we're annoyed by them because we don't actually get emergencies that often. It's just people who lost their car, and so they're kind of annoyed by that because they don't want to have to
I
respond.
lost my car. Okay, go down 3 rows, turn left.
But here's what's interesting.
How do I know where your car
I
is?
got that call, and just like 2 weeks prior to that, I had been doing a demo in a parking garage at a major mall where they wanted to see analytics and all this stuff. And while we were in there setting up, there was this woman that walked out of the mall, and the parking garage was kind of under construction, so it was super confusing, really hard to know. She lost her car. Well, they didn't have any blue light stations in there, that's why it was there, right? And they had a guy in a pickup truck that drove through like once every hour and a half, maybe. And this woman couldn't find her car. She could not find her car, couldn't get any help. Her cell phone didn't work. And so you think, okay, no big deal. But about 15 minutes later, I saw her, like, again, around the corner, and she was sitting on the curb crying. Right? Now, that woman has not had a good experience at your facility. Right? She might have right up until that moment, but now she's concerned, and I stopped to talk to her. She was late for something, and she just had no idea what she could do. So that's an important customer service aspect of what we do in security, which is make sure that people have a pleasant, good experience, right? Especially for someone like Michael, who he's trying to decide whether he wants to work at this facility, because you got to attract talent. Maybe not so much now, right? Unless you get a good positive response.
Cardholders walk up to a reader, though, they present a badge, it beeps, they walk through the door. They have no idea what went into the design or what you had to do to manage access levels and time zones and connect all those dots behind the scenes to make their life seamless and unobtrusive and just, beep, I got into work and I'm secure and safe. So, yeah, I think that's a major credit to people in security. So, people don't realize how much work is actually done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any questions on this segment? Thoughts? We can always come back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I'm thinking is, I've just done so many Indians that don't have operations.
Sure.
Security operations.
That makes it even harder, right? Because now how do you centralize response and have good processes in place? So again, flexibility becomes a really important thing. Can you take that call on a telephone? Can you find multiple telephones? Can you take it on a mobile device or a radio? Being able to cross platforms, but still have it integrated so you get the automated video and more importantly for forensics, the log, the report, the activity, call was placed, how long did it ring, was it answered, and for how long? Because so much of after the fact forensics is about, did you respond in a timely manner, right? And sometimes you can't stop everything, but did you respond?
Well, and to your point too, I think, security is typically thought of as a cost center. So we don't want to spend any more money than we have to on a security operations center or something like that. So if you're able to leverage investments and show the value to the business of why we use these applications, it's probably hard to put metrics of, how many nuisances or things that you avoided ultimately, but it's happening because of you're leveraging these systems against each other. So, and we're all having metrics. And actually, to that point, when you do leverage and integrate the systems, we are able to then have the audit trail of when these calls were placed, when we received them. So if you are doing your investigation after the fact, and we can then demonstrate to the people that write the checks for the system of, we were able to identify an incident and respond within X amount of minutes and provide those metrics because we have the data in the audit trail and the access control system from the intercom system.
That's right. And most audio communication systems don't provide their own audit trail.
Right.
They don't, unless you have audio recording set up somewhere, which is becoming more and more popular, but still, a searchable, reportable database of that activity that you can run easily and quickly to know exactly how often they're being used. This is important too for these particular types of systems because a lot of people, their first instinct is, well, people don't use them anymore. You use your cell phone. And that's extremely common, and it's even kind of common sense. And I've had customers that once they implement this and had to start looking at the ROI on it, were surprised at how often they're actually used. And they're not used as much as they used to be, but they are actually utilized. In fact, we did that study at Microsoft, and they were getting 40 calls a day, which was a lot more than anyone would have thought, even of that system that worked there.
And honestly, my iPhone does a lot of cool things for me, but I gotta say, being a phone is probably one of the worst things it does.
That's probably true.
That's why mine's Samsung.
That's a great point. So it's an interesting thing that deserves some look. But looking at those same old technologies, the problem is that the liability has shifted onto the customer to make sure that they work. And there's a huge expectation of response, and so you really got to protect yourself there.
Right. So we're going to talk about this guy.
You don't know this guy?
So anybody who's in loss prevention, understands that 80+% of theft is internal, right? So that's where it happens. So this guy's in a server storage room. Who knows what he's doing? It could be a cybersecurity issue. It could be just taking stuff, right?
He's looking for mice.
He's looking for mice, exactly. Right? You never know what's going on with this guy. He's totally dressed in a mice hunter outfit. So. And how he got in there, okay, he could have stolen a credential, he could have done a door forced open or door held open at some point to get in there. And so how do you handle that in real time as well as forensic usage, as well as mitigate that response immediately? So we're going to talk about all three of those things. So in the operations center, we have a couple of different ways we can take a look at that. So here, we have the integration with the Lenel happening inside the mapping side of Milestone. And I can actually see the state of the device. I can see the door open, close. I can see what camera that's tied into.
Can I just stop you real quick? Because one thing that we weren't really clear on when we were talking about integration was that the integration between Lenel and Milestone could be fully duplexed, where we're pulling their video in through our user interface, or we're sending our events into their UI and they're monitoring and controlling from there. So I just wanted to make sure. I don't think we got on that. So.
No, fair enough.
Yep.
And if you caught it, you saw that I right-clicked on this in the video, and I could unlock or lock the door, or set off an alarm, or mitigate or acknowledge an alarm, that kind of thing, right in here off of the. So it's interactive right there. So it makes it pretty easy to deal with. Now, if you need to search through events, all right, then you're. What happened to my?
I think you went too far. Yeah.
Yep, there it is.
It's
it just delayed a little bit. All right, so this is actually an access control tab inside the Milestone GUI. Inside here, I can choose what door I want. All right, choose all of them or specific doors. I can choose what event I want. I said, show me all of the access denied. Show me all of the door forced open or door held open or whatever. Or just show me all the events on this particular door from Tim. Right, and then Sorry, Tim. And then it'll just, and it'll just, you know, list these all, and I can just click right through them and follow a person all the way through your facility. All right. So what's cool about this is how easy it is. The learning curve on this is super simple, like minutes, right? It's drop down boxes, choose what door I want, type in the person's name, you know, choose whatever event I want, all the events show up right there, and then I can go right to that video quickly, because that's really what you want to do forensically in an integration between access control and video. So I want to make sure that that person came through that door at that time, and I want to do it now, not look it up here, look it up there, and do all that.
The other thing we can do is limit the types of events that come from Lenel and go into Milestone. So, you know, standard access granted events we don't really care about. Maybe it's door forced opens, held opens. Specifically, I know you guys have a lot of duress buttons hitting Lenel as well. So maybe we only want that subset of events going into the actual Milestone application. Yep. So we can limit what we see. It's not the entire alarm. Just get bogged down with it.
Now, back in this room, what do we do to mitigate it immediately? And this is actually a piece that a lot of people don't think about.
Yeah. And again, this is the piece that's out in the facility, right? So how can you use audio in that space at that moment while you're trying to figure out what's going on or figure out what's happening to discourage this behavior, right? So this is a place where you maybe use obnoxious alarms, you use max volume, right? Because you can set different priority levels for different things. Normal intercom call doesn't have to be that loud. Emergency priority goes max volume, gets everybody's attention in the area. If someone's in the area, they now know that something's going on, and you can create some pressure there. Interestingly, we always tend to think about audio coming out of these units, but they also can be useful for listening, right?
Goes both ways, huh?
Hmm?
Goes both ways.
Yeah, absolutely, it does indeed. And that's one of the biggest differences between using just a traditional paging system and incorporating some of your intercoms, especially when they have paging capabilities, into your paging systems. Because now you have microphones that can also listen. And with the software that runs on the units, if you had one in this room, for example, where it's just a server room, so it has a pretty even level of noise all the time, because typically nobody's supposed to be in there, but it's a super sensitive space. So every time someone goes in, whether they have a access granted event or it's a breach, you want to have eyes on that space, just to be sure that everything's cool. Then you can set up audio monitoring on the unit in there that will alert or alarm anytime the decibel level goes over a certain level. So just the noise created by somebody coming through the door, right, kerchunk, is enough to alert from an audio perspective, create an alarm in Lenel, or even just straight to Milestone that pulls in a flying video so that you can personally verify visually that that person is supposed to be there. Because if they stole a credential or found one and intentionally used that to get in, you may not even know he's in there. Right.
So that's these devices here you have there?
Yeah, these turbine units here have an unusual design on the front plate that allows them to get the audio out of the speaker much more efficiently than a traditional intercom. So that allows them to have much more volume, much stronger amplifier. So they have a 10-watt amplifier that'll do over 100 decibels. So if you think of like a 10-watt horn, which we also have IP 10-watt horns, but it's essentially the same audio output. And we'll do that demonstration when we get to the
So what infrastructure do you need to have to support that? What
They're just
infrastructure?
IP.
Just
Power
IP?
over Ethernet, standard
PoE?
power.
Standard
Yeah, this
PoE?
is the Stentofon Alpacom XE1. So that device integrates into OnGuard. We license by exchange, only one of these, but this one exchange will handle 522. Right?
Okay.
And they're available with or without a camera. So in this case, you have one with the camera built in. So as you take that call, welcome, and push the button. There you go. Welcome, or stop, go away. Whatever you want it to say. It's just a simple intercom call, and then you can crank the volume all the way up. We'll show you that.
Okay, so what kind of wattages are those things drawing off the PoE?
From the power perspective, when they're idle, they're about 4 watts for just the general overhead supervision, and then at max volume, they can draw about 12 watts.
12?
Because
Okay.
it's 10-watt amplifier, right?
All right.
But you wouldn't use them at max volume very often.
Right,
Most of
of
the
course.
time,
So
you're
that's
gonna be
your-
around-
That's your spike.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so they're still
yeah.
so they're still AF, right? That's what
Yeah.
Yeah, so in regular intercom calls, they're usually about 7 or 8 watts. But again, remember, in intercom calls, you're typically not using more than one at a time.
Right.
So the only time you really have to think about power consumption is if you're using it for mass paging at high volume. where
Well, the
they're
thing
all-
I'm concerned about, or the thing that I would have to consider, is that we've got these plugged into a network switch with, you know, the network switch is gonna be handling other devices,
Right.
Sure.
cameras and, you know, who knows what else.
Sure.
And,
So it's good to
you know,
consider.
so we've gotta consider what the power consumption is gonna be, so we're not over budget, you know?
Absolutely.
As you should, yeah, absolutely. Yep. But they do have a 10 watt amplifier, so at max volume, they can draw about 12 watts.
Okay.
Good question. And it just goes to the flexibility of using them as two-way communications for everyday stuff, maybe a little bit more so with the supervision and the integration with the other systems in emergencies, and then being able to use them as broadcast or local noisemakers in that area for different alarms. Different alarms.
We want to go to the demo?
Sure. Yeah. Just more importantly, remember, don't be these guys. They're not talking. Let's talk.
Yeah.
So,
Sure.
so the funny story is, I actually Googled, you know, two guys on binge starting a partnership, and that came up.
So what movie
if
was
you're ever
it?
a fan of the show, that's really funny.
You got disheveled when I was like 60.
I'm the guy on the left. Is that what you're saying?
You look way older than this
There you go.
already.
And yeah, it's funny because this came out of course, you know, a planning session over a couple glasses of wine. And but what's really fun about this is, and what we want you to take away from it is the deep level of partnership between these companies. Now, there's a lot of companies in security right now that are trying to be masters of everything,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, you have three very simple building blocks: access, video, and audio communications. That's what everybody's working
Just
with.
gonna do
And some are trying to do all of it, but you always have a better chance of success by using best in breed in each category. But then you run the risk of those partnerships and having to be dependent on that. So we're really trying to change the paradigm of what partnership and integration even means, if you'd want to use that word, because it's a little bit deeper, by collaborating right from the very engineering level to think about what do customers really want in an integrated video access control platform. Oh, well, they actually want the events right there in their video.
Yep.
How do we build that in?
And the reason why the three of us specifically got together to do this, to speak to the integrations from, you know, a technical aspect. Lenel writes the integration for Stentofon. We've been doing it for 15, 20 years now, or something like that, the longest standing partner we have. I don't know if you're familiar, but Lenel has what we call our OAAP program, Open Access Alliance program, where we publish our APIs and invite any third-party company to integrate. There's over 100 companies in that program right now, but the integration is on them. Like, they chose to write it, they brought it to Lenel, we certified it, put it on our website, it said it works and everything. But as we upgrade our software, the onus is on them to upgrade their API to allow a customer to continue to have that solution going forward. And unfortunately, I will admit, I've seen in the past where third-party companies come in and they've seen dollar signs and said, if I write this integration, I'm going to sell my product. And then they got
For
the
this one
monetary
job,
value
right?
out of it. And then they walked away. And when we upgraded, they just said, well, you know, hey, what's in it for us now that we already made our sale? Like, well, why do we care to keep up with the updates? So the reason why I bring that up is because out of those 100+ companies, Milestone is one that I can say, I know their roadmap. Their R&D talks to our R&D. Like, so it truly is a tight partnership. And what you're seeing today is just the beginning. Like, we've already talked about how deeper the integration is going to get. And we don't like to talk too much about it because we don't want to, you know, get everybody all jazzed up and then it's, you know, a couple months away still. But we do know that our engineers talk to their engineers, and we know the roadmap.
And it's about recertifying at every rep, right? I just got an email this morning from, we have a gentleman named Dan Rothrock in our organization who his entire job, he's been 22 years with the company, his entire job is to manage our relationship with our strategic manufacturer partners. He doesn't have any sales responsibility. And he just sent me an email this morning in preparation for this to say, we're already certifying with the next version of Lenel. And so, you know, these are already vetted before it even hits the market. So you don't have any of that lag time when you upgrade your systems.
Yep. So when you're ready to upgrade, you can be confident that your integrations will come with you.
Yes.
Yeah, I joked yesterday the package to integrate Milestone and OnGuard, the one that I actually used was literally named OnGuard 7.0 to XProtect 2016. This is OnGuard 17 XProtect 2017 R2. And I asked, like, hey, so they're like, no, when we go ahead and actually certify that, we'll just rename that package because the APIs didn't change on either side. They're like, do you want me to do that for you? I'm like, I'm doing this internally. Like, I don't need you to rename an EXE for me. Like, this is what it is. Yes, it's fine. So, I mean, even in the last 3 versions of OnGuard or 2 or 3 versions of Milestone, our APIs on both sides haven't really changed at all. So that's actually a really good thing. Obviously, as we move forward, we don't have to worry about, does this work with that?
So just gonna get
We're very much in line with one another on how we actually develop software. Right?
Yep.
So this is just going to be a little practical scenario. Obviously, this is a screen any OnGuard users are probably pretty familiar with. You can see my door controller here, the readers associated. One thing like you would notice on the LMBR side, we actually can bring in the Milestone recorder into OnGuard just like we can our own, and actually display all the videos in launch video just like we could standard support of cameras within the Lenel GUI. So when we talk about integration early days or maybe what some partners do, this is kind of where the integration ends, right? Hey, we get their video into OnGuard, that's great. We have video into an access control solution, but that doesn't really leverage how good of a GUI on a video-centric solution that we have on the Milestone end, right? So that's kind of where we take this entire conversation forward next. So in my scenario, I had a few things I wanted to do. I want to generate a door forced open event, see that event in OnGuard, but I also want to see that event show up within Milestone. So I can actually see the event in Milestone, look at any associated cameras on the Milestone end. I could also do it on the Lenel side if I wanted to. So I could do it in either scenario. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. So we'll see the door forced open event come in to Lenel. I'm going to jump over into my Milestone client. So you can actually see the door forced open event generated within the alarms tab. So you can actually watch me press that device and it actually sources the event from OnGuard, right? That's great because now I can do things within the Milestone GUI. I could launch logic on that. I have some other scenarios which I'll do that on. But this could also create a burden depending on whose end user software and how deep that they've integrated, right? So from on the Milestone side as well, I can actually look at that event and I can actually take some actions. So if I want to close the event, it'll actually take it off of the alarm tab. If I jump back over into OnGuard, we can actually see it'll send the restoral event and actually acknowledge the alarm on the Lenel side as well. So I don't need to manage an event in 2 different pieces of software now, right? I can manage it in either one I want to. So if it is a duress button that goes off within OnGuard, maybe I'm launching specific cameras up in the Milestone to see actually what's going on. I can actually embed pop-ups, so we'll see that in my next scenario. But buttons on those pop-ups actually drive change in Lenel as well. So I can actually do it in real time, but it's actually going to be driving change from Milestone into the OnGuard software. So it helps with the operational efficiency as well as somebody's learning curve or the training that guard services would have to go through, right? The last thing you want is to have 3 enterprise class systems and have a burden of training, right? Stuff should be easy to use, it should integrate, it should be fairly intuitive. So in the next scenario, I'm going to go ahead, as Derek mentioned, I'm going to leave the Milestone client minimized, but I'm going to generate a call on my Stentofon system. So as I establish the call, you're going to see something happen. So the Milestone pop-up directly comes over any existing application that's open. So I can actually see the little video that's coming across on the actual turbine itself. I can launch other cameras if I wanted to, if there was some on the other sides of the door. But I also have a door open button in Milestone that's actually going to go ahead and pop the door through the Lenel system, so you can actually see the door open command issued directly from Milestone into Lenel. So I answered the call, I see the video, I can see the person, I actually have a button embedded, I can hit the button, it automatically sends the command all the way through to OnGuard, unlocks the door for the person standing there.
And this is important because the traditional way that intercoms have been used to unlock doors for many years is through the relay on the back of the intercom, right? If you ask intercom, a lot of intercom companies will say, do you have door unlock? Sure, we have a relay built into the back of the intercom. Okay, except intercoms tend to be on the outside of a building, right? And that relay is such that if you could pull it off the door and short that relay, you will open it, right? And a lot of times it even bypasses the access control altogether and is wired straight to the lock. So now you have no record that door was opened, you have no idea who opened it and whether it was tied to a call, and your relay is vulnerable on the outside of your building. So in handling the call this way, you get the immediate conversation, you get the immediate video verification in Milestone so it can be recorded, and then you have the ability to unlock the door through your typical door release channel, not using the relay embedded on the back.
Yeah, so on the Lenel side as well, we can actually see where the call is connected to and from. So I can tell the entrance is actually going back to the control room. Then if you look at the alarms within OnGuard, we can actually see the intercom station entrance going back to the control room as well from an alarm perspective. So I know exactly where the call is generated from, where it was going to, like I said, duration and everything else we can.
And if you had maps enabled, it would pop up, you know, as an alarm in that location, so you can see where it's coming from. So.
Yeah, if we jump over to the milestone side though, just like Derek mentioned, we go back to my lives tab, we can actually see a map. I mean, I can generate this map, I actually did as well. So I could have the map exist either within OnGuard or within Stentofon. So here's my intercom device, like I mentioned, like directly here, but I could actually come in, see the camera. So if I just want to do a little preview, I'm not sure how this clip actually works.
You just hover it over.
Okay,
There you go.
not my software.
How intuitive is it, right?
Hover your cursor over, it'll pop up.
I got you. So I can actually launch the video directly from the Stentofon intercom, but as Derek mentioned as well, I can come in here and do changes within Lenel as well within Milestone. So I can say, hey, just go ahead and open that door again. It's going to issue commands directly from Milestone software back into OnGuard. So I did mention that forced open, which obviously comes through the alarm manager. But as Derek mentioned as well, we actually have our access controls tab. So if I did want to see, you know, a specific alarm event, say access granted, I'm the closest Y up. So access granted that occurred for Adam Roads on a specific door, I can actually do that. We can actually watch me press the button. Then I can actually scroll down here and actually look at the particle record directly from Lenel in the Milestone application as well. And let's say that problem door 2, I wanted to do maybe some video verification. So we can do that from OnGuard, but I want to verify that the person that walked through the door is the actual card holder that I have in my system in the picture for, right? So that's the other piece of logic that I actually programmed in. So as I walk through the door, it's actually going to bring up a video fly up. It's going to show me the video and directly show me the card holder record from there. So again, you know, someone comes up to the door without a badge, I want to see who they are on the intercom, launch with other cameras. The door's forced open, I want to see cameras associated to that as well. But I also want to see the actual employees that are coming through the door and make that really easy, right? I don't want to have to open a map, I don't want to have to go from one piece of software to another to really understand, okay, I had access granted on this door in Lenel, let's go to Milestone and try to find the camera associated with whatever reader, right? And we can just interconnect these.
And that video feed, correct me if I'm wrong, could be, of course, the camera up in the hallway,
Yeah,
but it could also be the camera that's right in the video intercom that's sitting there.
Yep.
So even though they didn't use the video intercom to talk, you can still take advantage of that camera as someone walks through the card read.
Yeah, it's coming through just as a direct channel.
Yeah, it's just another camera in your system.
Right into Milestone. Over the
This
camera.
is cool.
It
I
really
love the
is.
milestone now
Yep.
connection. It's looking cool.
So yeah, there's just a camera directly associated to this Stentofon intercom. As a channel.
Any questions so far?
That's pretty straightforward to me.
Excellent.
That sounds
Yeah, so here we
should
have
be.
here we have the direct devices. I'm launching the map and the camera associated, so you can actually see the full list of alarms that I had coming over from OnGuard. Really easy to actually see the events that happened from the camera as well. Plus we have our scrub bars and everything. You know, we can drag and drop it.
So where we see this really happening is Lenel tends to be the hub that holds everything together, right? So that's where you're going to run all your reporting on. They have the most comprehensive, reporting to do with all of these different aspects. But your users are going to be using the Milestone GUI because that's what they're staring at. They're staring at the video all the time, right? So being able to operationally do everything inside one GUI and be able to pull in the Stentofon and get real-time alerts from all these other things and then run all the reports out of the hub, all right? That's going to be your advanced users, right? So you're going to have a wide variety of technical expertise using the system, right? So being able to do it really simple, quick, and easy, and just have it happen. I mean, you guys know how difficult it is on the backside, right? This stuff just doesn't happen, right?
No.
But on the front side, it does need to do it like that.
Yeah,
It needs to
the
just
video-
happen.
The video operator is typically different from a forensic investigator too.
Correct.
That's true.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can address those variety of users that you're going to have.
Yeah, and the ability to pull up the credential is so interesting in your everyday operations because if you think of just a very simple door with a card reader and a video intercom, and you get the card read, you get the video feed, the credential right there. You could even tie off of the access granted event a welcome message that says "Welcome to Wayne Enterprises," right? As you walk through. So now you're greeting the person, you're looking at them, you've got their credential in front of you, all off of a true just credential entrance. Right? That's so cool. That's neat.
So Any other questions, thoughts?
You can greet them.
Hello? Hello? Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3.
That's the turbine. So the last thing I wanted to do real quick was just be able to show you the audio on these. But you know, it is something to just say hello.
Hello? Hello? Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3.
So here's your volume
Well,
on
hello
the voice
there.
message.
I hope you can all see and hear me. Now, normally I'd wave,
And you can add
but alas, they
an
didn't give me
emergency
any
priority
arms.
that gives us a bump in
I
volume.
must say though, you're all looking wonderful today.
Right? In an
So I guess you're wondering who I am.
situation.
Yes?
Simon Cowell?
Please.
And you can even, when we talked about, you know, creating discomfort through alarms, like the, you know, the nefarious bad guy in the server room, you know, you can use any WAV file, so anything that might impact that area. So this will be noisy, but just to give you a sense of what you can get out of these. Right?
Whoa.
That woke me up.
Not bad from an intercom.
That's just an intercom, right?
Yeah.
So it does. You can do so many things by taking audio and pulling it together with the video, so you can see and hear and be aware of the environment and log it all.
Just think if we had the loudspeaker
It's so
horn.
cool. Yeah, yeah. That's even loud. What do you think? Hey, Bob?
We can yell at that guy right now. Hey, sketchy dude, what are
Hey,
you doing in the
sketchy
parking
dude,
lot?
what do you lose your
Okay.
car?
Yeah, right? What kind of car are you looking for?
I guess from my end, the question is always how do is how to define some of this stuff too. I mean, producing bid documents, a contractor's bidding on, you know, I can ask the questions to the end user all day long and get their needs, you know, but how to define
That's absolutely right.
the integrator shall perform or shall make the system do these things.
Yeah, some amount of interoperability, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that you brought that up, because I agree. I don't know, we all see specs all the time that say, you know, at the very last point after all of this stuff about what the equipment to put in, it shall integrate to
Yeah.
ACAM system, right? That's usually what mine says. And it's like, okay,
Yeah,
well,
but what?
what do you want it to do, right?
Yeah.
It can do so many things, and what does that mean? And so you'll get the very least amount of interoperability. They'll go, okay, well, we'll put these over here in this list, and that's it, you know, because now it's integrated, and you don't get any of this. So that's actually a really good point. I was working on a project last year, and it was with your colleagues' guidepost solutions down in the Bay Area, and we're working with a large end user, and they wanted to further define it. So this is a movement that's happening in the consulting community of how do we define exactly what we want it to do, and they worked hard to come up with some spec language that would actually hold integrators accountable, because ultimately they're the ones that are supposed to do this programming, right? And hold them accountable for showing certain functionality, and you know, the extra time it takes to have the fly-in video and the automated audio message every time there's a card, you know, access granted activity, might be crucial to the customer, might even be why they sold or bought the systems, but then isn't implemented in
A lot of times too, I've actually seen it through guideposts, actually, kind of job, west side. But a lot of times I've seen it on drawings, right? So I was the one doing drawing review in my previous role. And a lot of times it would have, you know, a notation by said door, and then on the drawing it would, you know, say, hey, this specific, you know, on door held open or forced open, Stentofon intercom would, you know, generate audio message, you know, whatever the audio message would be or whatever, yep. Notifying, you know, end user to close the door and blah, blah, blah. That way there's a narrative when someone does an actual bid that they should review it when it comes to scope, right? To actually understand the functionality of the door, right? I get into those scenarios all the time where, I had a huge one up in Canada too, where I get drawn into conversations between engineers and end users and people try and commission systems and go like, well, this doesn't do what we want it to. And I'm like, okay, what's the narrative of the door say that my VAR bid on?
Right.
Oh, well,
You
cool.
can
So they didn't have a
solve for
scope
them
when they
too,
did the
right?
job. Now you're trying to make them do a bunch of work that they never were aware they had to happen in the first
And
place,
that's
right?
something that can take a 20-page spec and turn it into a 60-page spec,
Yeah.
or a 100-page spec.
Yeah.
I liked it on, I personally liked it on drawings. Only because then I can actually see the physical door, I can see the cameras and intercom station associated, and then I can have a narrative of how the door is supposed to function, right?
But it is a
that's just the way
problem.
my brain works.
I mean, it's definitely a problem because it's only now that manufacturers are really starting to raise the bar by collaborating in this way to say this is available to you. And when end customers are evaluating technologies and we come out and we show them this and they go, oh yeah, that's what I want, then it's a really big challenge for you to put that into words, right? Exactly what you want it to do. And then, of course, your integrator, he's got to give you the lowest price he can, right? So he's only going to do what's exactly specified, and integrated into is such a big...
That's always the
rest
challenge, is
will be
defining those
And it's not really
requirements.
fair to them either, right? Because
Yeah.
all of this stuff takes time and programming to make sure it works the way it does. So we all need to be better about that.
80 hours of programming.
I was going to say, can you actually...
Above and beyond standard
Yeah, above and
functionality.
beyond, yeah.
They're still gonna want something specified, like what do you want it to do, right?
Yeah.
Because as me
Yeah.
being the guy that would do it, I would still wanna know what's the functionality, what's, you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
When a duress button goes off at West Side, what do you want the system to do?
That's actually a really good
Then I can tell you
idea
how much
doing
time
it
that's
that
gonna
way,
take.
because then when whoever wins the spec.
That's the whole reason why we
right?
did this, because
Then you
if
sit
you
down
don't know
with
what the
them, the
capabilities
end
are, you
user,
don't know what to tell them to
to
do.
find it out,
Right.
and that's
You need to
your-
know-
I mean, that's
know the
literally
question.
you putting all the
Right,
pieces
yeah.
together for them. I mean, that's your value
It's
add.
actually a great idea. I kind of missed it, but did you say putting in the spec X number of hours?
Yeah.
That's actually a
Integration
really
hours
good
above
idea.
and beyond
Because then you would get
functionality.
a apples to apples bid.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of times the problem is that you don't actually know what the customer's going to want, because you're
I
not,
could
you're
probably
too
go
far
50
out in the
hours
construction
people might not be
process
able
to
to much
even
of
know
it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
who's going to be occupying
Well,
that floor.
that's
or
always a
what their
challenge,
needs
is
are.
to get a layman or user
Get the super
to
spec that's
sit down and define what the requirements are, and
Right.
to articulate what they really want it to do.
What they want to do.
Yeah.
And that's been a constant challenge with me in dealing with some of our security guys, and saying, okay, yeah, you want a video surveillance system, you want a video management system, what do you want it to do? We want analytics. Okay, what analytics?
Because that's a whole other, yeah, like, okay.
That sounds
What
familiar.
analytics? What do you want?
You
And
want
where do you
cross-site
want
detection,
these
you want
analytics?
Where do
pointer
you
aim,
want
you
it?
want smoke detection, like, what do you want, facial detection, what do you want it to do?
We can't get them to define that because they don't know what they want.
We
They,
just want
they
it.
went to a trade show somewhere,
Right.
saw it,
Saw that you
and said,
had
"Oh,
it."
analytics, gotta have it."
Yeah.
You
I saw
know,
it in a perfectly confined environment where that analytic worked perfectly well as well.
certainly.
Now they're like, I want to put a camera on the top of KPV, 20 stories up. I want to do X, Y, yeah.
Well, yeah, that
Across
was
3 city blocks.
that was one thing they wanted to do is
Never
they
did.
wanted to mount those high-res cameras on the top of the building
I know.
and look down on the parking lots. Well, that's all fine and good in the wintertime when
Right.
there are no leaves on the trees,
Right.
Yeah.
but when there are leaves on the trees, that blocks out 2/3
So
of
it's
the
probably
view.
not great in the fall and the spring. It's
Vegetation
long
is
sitting
the
out here and you're trying to
number
put, you know,
one issue with anybody in the security industry, from the consultant side to the
As it
integrator
grows,
side.
it
Yeah.
changes.
It's absolutely evil because they don't want to cut them down.
Let's throw
No.
some, let's
Well,
throw
the
some
city won't
wireless
let you.
to that line of sight right now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they may not even let you.
Yeah,
Thinning them out is like, oh my god.
yeah. So.
Yeah, and that, you bring up a great point, and it's one of the reasons why we want to facilitate sessions like this, where we bring together the various stakeholders in this ecosystem that we're all a part of,
Mhm.
and say, okay, well, as manufacturers, we're doing our best to provide something we think is what you really want to use, and then, you know, on the consultant side, how do you kind of educate yourself so that you can advise your customers? Like, you don't have to know everything, but tell me what your workflow is like and your business is like, and I can give you some best practices. Here's what I would recommend, right? Maybe, or what I see other companies doing, and we can help with that as well. And then customers need to take a little bit of responsibility for making some decisions about what their processes and procedures are, and how the technology can support that. But I think an open dialogue is so important
Mhm.
to that. Otherwise, it's like we put a widget out, you grab the spec and put it out, and pushes it out on the VAR, who bids the project, and then does the least amount of work possible, you know?
Well, most of
And-
the time too, the integration or even widget or whatever it would be hardly ever makes it down to the end user. Like, how are you supposed to be, or even as a specifier, how are you even supposed to know this exists or it can happen without any sort of dialogue? You go to a trade show once a year and hopefully,
And then how do we get it to actually happen?
Well,
hopefully we're all
not only that, the end user is saying, "Gee, it's nice you provided this for me, but
You know?
I'll never use it."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens all the time
You
too,
know?
right? Technology looking for problems instead
Yeah.
of problems looking for technology.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually the approach we were trying to take today, was to take a look at, rather than going, okay, well, here's what we launched it as is this year.
Mhm.
Does it fit with what anything? Can you use this? You know.
Can we shoehorn it in?
But right,
Yeah.
it's rather to try to take a given overly simplistic look,
Yeah.
but as a
Everyday
means
scenario.
to
Holistic look.
brainstorm and generate ideas, but overly simplistic look at real scenarios that everyone deals with, and think about, okay, how can this help support that? And more often than not, we see so often there's so many shiny widgets out there that, oh, well, now I have this problem with this door. I'll go out and buy new technology, right? Or I need a panic button on this app or whatever. I'll go buy new technology that does that instead of using the systems you already have, which through integrated solutions can actually mitigate some of that. It doesn't cost you more money. But a lot of times we just don't know.
You bring up a good point about the panic buttons, because that's another thing that we looked at. We looked at a product called Lynx that puts the panic button on the keyboard. Well, that's all fine and good, but we've got so many laptops out there, and laptops are mobile. And how do you tie a panic to a particular laptop that isn't at its station?
Isn't in a known location.
Right. So we
That's the
kind of
problem.
ended up poo-pooing that one and put that one on the shelf. And we decided to go with just the regular hardwired buttons and Lenel.
Have you ever heard of a product called Everbridge?
Everbridge?
Yes.
No, I haven't, but I'll tell you, we've got a guy that's been looking into workplace violence, and one of the things that he wanted to do is have panic buttons that are like wearable devices or something like that. What's it called again?
Everbridge?
Everbridge.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Everbridge is it's actually a portfolio of solutions that the piece we connect to is one piece called Safety Connector, but they do mass notification, they do all sorts of things. But they can put an application on your phone that allows you to do check-ins. So if you arrive someplace and you want security or whatever to know that, or maybe you're a mobile employee that travels somewhere, you do a check-in. It allows you to do an SOS. So it essentially lets your cardholders or your employees become a force multiplier for security, because when you go into SOS mode, it takes over the camera and microphone on your phone and gives you 2 minutes of recording in audio, video to capture the scene, and that goes back to the security operations center, whatever.
That's cool.
And then they also do a...
Does it have like GPS locators on it?
Yes.
Because you've got GPS in your phone, right?
Yes. So it either takes your last known location from your phone or your badging and from the access control system. Which, if you don't have badge out readers, that's why the phone's pretty critical, right? Because we'll just know where the last time you were. Maybe you're on vacation and you badged in last week. But yeah. And then they also have another piece to it called Safe Corridor, where, you know, maybe I work in downtown and it's late at night and I want security to know I made it to my car, okay. You launch Safe Corridor, and it allows you to specify an amount of time that you have to check in again until you get to where you're going. And if you're not checking in, then it goes into SOS and they know something happened.
The other thing, like remote, do you guys do at-home nursing? I'm not sure if Kaiser does, like deploy remote nursing to at-home patient care.
They do.
You can also have like Everbridge linked into that kind of a database to say that, hey, my wife's an RN, right? So I'll use her as an example, but I'll say, you know, JC's going to this specific house, she should be there for an hour and a half. If her geolocation tag hasn't moved, now Everbridge can start seeing your notifications. Like, are you okay? Are you safe? Like, why are you still here? Right, you should have left by now. Right, so is the nurse responded? Is she still there? Obviously she hasn't moved, right? Did somebody attack her? So a lot of interesting scenarios that can happen with that product, and it's pretty powerful. Actually, if you reach out to Alan, he's the guy that actually is the counterpart.
His role now is Director of Integrations.
Yeah, he covers Alert and Everbridge.
So it integrates with Lenel, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, so that was the last piece, is that just remember this is one more piece of this puzzle, right?
It takes last
So
known
now you
location.
can take any of these
It takes last known
that we're
location,
talking
right?
about,
So
and you can link it to a video call up or an audio message in a location or broadcast. Seattle Children's Hospital actually is doing something interesting right now with their duress buttons. They had a separate system that they had deployed for duress buttons that created an alarm in Lenel, but then sent it like an alarm out to the guards' mobile pagers to tell them to respond. And that process was taking multiple minutes, 2, 3, 4 minutes sometimes before you got to the duress alarm.
Spider Alert was that way too.
Yeah, it took a really long time.
Yeah.
Well, they happen to have a Lenel system and a Stentofon system already. And since the Stentofon system can be connected to your radios and broadcast throughout your radio system, with the tools they already had, they just added the little piece that connects to the radio system. They've reworked that system so the duress button now creates an alarm in Lenel, which broadcasts a pre-recorded message associated with that particular location throughout the radio network that says duress alarm from location 134, or whatever it says, West Wing, please respond. And that process takes about 15 seconds. From the second the button is pushed to the second the radios broadcast that pre-recorded message, and then they can respond immediately for whoever's in the area. using existing technology though.
Yeah.
Again, right? They just were like, well, we already have these systems. We're like, well, great. Time together,
Use
throw
it.
this in here,
Use
and
it.
boom, we can
Yeah.
fix this problem. But but Everbridge becomes one of the pieces in that puzzle then, right?
Mhm.
So some of these alarms, the SOSs, they can start to push messages, call up video, and be part of this integrated and intricate solution.
Yeah, really, when you start looking at the geotagging and other locations within Everbridge, I think the power. We had a customer up in Alaska actually tell us, well, we have specific as a tribal health customer, we have specific buses that take patients to specific locations, but we need to know where the bus is. So if an actual, let's say a duress event occurs within that location, we want to make sure we notify only the people there. So they tie into OnGuard, see last known location. They can actually see if your cell phone's connected to like a wireless WAP, because that's data that the company has. They don't have to geolocate somebody. So you say, I want to broadcast to the people that are there. So if I didn't show up for work, I shouldn't get the broadcast because I'm not within the building. But I also want to say, I know this bus is inbound. I want to dispatch to the driver and tell them to not show up either because there's some sort of event going on. So now I need to take them to another location. So I need to, what sort of systems do we have that can help mitigate those risks, right? And that's really kind of the big picture around Everbridge, right? Where are people? Are they actually here on site? Or am I just broadcasting to everybody that works for Kaiser, don't come to Sunnyside?
Right.
When I should say, who are the people in Sunnyside today? What are the metrics defined by how I know these people are here? Have they went through a door in Sunnyside today? Are they connected, are they logged into a PC somewhere? Are they connected to some sort of wireless device, with on my network? So I actually know that they're there by MAC address or whatever. And now I want to send a message just to the people.
Yeah, it'd be nice to be able to send like a code silver alert to various people.
Yeah, they can, with the mapping and the geospatial too, they can draw a circle around Sunnyside and then say, only alert people within 1 mile radius of this building.
So they bought IDV solutions, right?
IDV, yep.
IDV
The mapping?
solutions.
Really?
Yeah, so they're the geo mapping. They were like the best
that's
geomapping
cool
software
stuff.
in the entire world.
We integrate
so
with
they
the
actually
IDV.
bought
Yep.
IDV. So they're just going to make
Which
their
means you
platform
probably
more
have some
powerful. It's
hooks into.
Yeah, which means we integrate with it too. I mean, so most of the stuff is going to integrate. I mean, so when
Yeah,
you're looking
some
at the difference between like Lenel and Milestone, we both have like this huge ecosystem partner on each side of us, which is like it's. I mean, part of the process of us, partnering over the past few months is just discovering all the cool stuff we can do because of our huge ecosystem we have on each side that ends up getting tied together and then filters both sides, both ways. So that's cool. I didn't know that they had purchased IDV.
Yeah.
IDV is cool stuff.
Yeah, it's very cool stuff.
I want to say that was announced last February because we were in our sales meeting and they were presenting to us when the news came out.
A product like Everbridge, typically if you have risk and compliance, those types of people, when it handles on the IT side as well, they typically look into platforms like that already. But it's really, does that commingle to the security side of the business? And the answer is typically no.
Right.
So one of our, go ahead.
Just understanding whether or not internally you guys are looking, because you might already be looking to cost something similar, whether it fits into whoever's budget or how they integrate, that might be something that nobody ever even asked, right?
Yeah, we've already got the Vocera throughout the system.
Yep.
Well, at least in the hospitals, anyways. They've also got what is it called? Aeroscout?
Aeroscout, sure.
Yeah, the Aeroscout.
Yep.
And so I'm just trying to figure out, are these things enough? Do we need something else like Everbridge? Along with our hardwired buttons and
Something like
I'm just trying to wrap my head around all this stuff.
Something like Everbridge is at least something worth looking at, because even when I saw it, and I've done this for my whole professional career, 15 plus years, but when I saw it, I was like, wow.
Yeah,
like
it's
that's
nice
impressive. Like, because it's almost Big Brother-y impressive, right?
Well, Microsoft and Amazon uses something very similar to that. But
Microsoft uses Everbridge.
They do.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
because they were just implementing that before I left.
Yes.
But Microsoft can tell you where anybody is within their campus at any time.
Anywhere.
When I was traveling for Microsoft, even with the old system, they knew exactly where I was at all times.
Yeah. Like Everbridge will even integrate with like a Concur or a travel agency so that it also knows your expected location if you're traveling.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going to Brussels and there's a shooting at the airport, so now they're dispatching you while you're on the plane. Hey, there's been an event.
And they actually did that to me.
Yeah.
I was to be flying into Iowa. They intercepted me in Minneapolis, rerouted me back to Denver,
right?
So I could go to Cheyenne.
Right. Yeah.
And it was just like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So one of the concepts we had is we got together and we thought, oh, great, with with the Lenel Milestone deep partnership that's there in the long existing Stentofon Lenel piece, and how do we really leverage this to help our customers know what they've got and, like you said, use existing systems to solve problems more creatively. One of our concepts here was to make sessions like this kind of a bit of a workshop series, right? So a couple times a year, come back and do same thing, but not necessarily the same content. Focus on different solutions, maybe bring in additional partners. Today we wanted to really just talk about core functionality, which is access, video, and audio. But each one of these sessions have a different focus, a different problem to talk about in more detail, maybe another technology partner that's part of this ecosystem, and do this maybe 2 or 3 times a year. Is that something you guys would come back for?
Yeah, I would.
Awesome. I mean, I won't hold you to it if you're busy that day, but just to know, because it is a lot of work on our side, and a lot of this has been, like our marketing departments weren't involved with this. Our first crack at a Prezi presentation is what you saw, and it was basically done in between emails and phone calls, but this is something that we would like to put energy into to help our existing customer base, and first, and potential customers second, but and to do a sort of a recurring workshop, because sometimes they think coordinated tech shows is usually what they're called. You stand up and talk about Stentofon, and I'll stand up and talk about individual, and then they're a one-off, one and done, right? And it's like,
well, and if I'm just up here on my own soapbox, I'm going to overly inflate my product and maybe make all these claims about what it'll do, but she's here to hold me to
Mark by Lenel, we already have it. That's what you mind it then.
Yeah, and these we're looking at is like, maybe next time we'll bring in, a camera analytic manufacturer, talk about how.
Oh, that would be cool.
Right?
That would be cool.
So
I'd get Phil to that one.
Right. I knew that was coming.
I'm sure it's giving you some things to think about of how you're going to deploy your solution, right? I know the way that we put the proposal together, he included his integration, I included the Lenel integration, so you can deploy it as a fully duplex system. So. Yep.
That's what we want.
Excellent. Excellent. Great.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much, guys. I'm glad you all came, or else we'd be talking to each other all the time. Again,
We've
it's
done that enough over the
our
past
first
month.
crack at this, but we would like it to become something very interactive, collaborative among the members of the area, and just to generate thoughts, something that's a little bit different. That's not
Yeah, like,
the same
do you think it's beneficial, like you said, to do the scenarios as opposed to we just get up and talk about features and stuff like that? I mean,
I think so.
Yeah.
It's certainly for me.
Good.
Because like I said, my job is trying to assess what their needs are, and to a building that doesn't exist, and just kind of thinking of some of these.
That way, it's like, oh my gosh, your job's hard.
Some of these, scenarios are, it's easy to kind of look at a floor plan and say, all right, you need access control of this door, rather than what is the actual user function,
right?
And what kind of problems you could see happening.
Well, if you're specifying paging and multiple types of systems in the building too, you can realize, okay, I just don't need to do like a wall-in for paging. Okay, now I need intercom, so I'm just going to do some cheesy Viking telephone box, right? I'm going to do, that single device can handle 500 plus endpoints. You know what I mean? It can be a totally integrated system. You have intercoms that double as paging devices. You have, now it's a more kind of holistic approach, even just that portion, right?
And ultimately, you save, the customer saves money over time because there's only a single system to maintain and learn and be trained on and maintain.
You paid money to secure a door, right? You did that for a reason.
That's such a basic concept, and yet.
So, I mean, keyless entry is
complex.
great, but you also have to think about, okay, so we secured this door. What happens when something happens at this door now? Right?
Well, and generally too, everything at the door, right? The cable pull, the rough end, that's a cost that hardly changes, right? If you're roughing in another box for a Stentofon device plus pulling a Cat 6 there, that's infrastructure that probably costs pennies on the dollar. Right?
It's that. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, guys.
That was
Feel
a
free to hang out if you want.
A fun conversation.
No, this is good.
Awesome.